question. Now, I'm going to be talking about empathetic superintelligence, and quite a one question arises. Aren't I really talking about being nice to each other, not really talking about intelligence at all? Isn't empathetic intelligence really just a personality variable? And the answer I'm going to give is that probably not. Our mind reading ability, capacity is a cognitively demanding adaptation. Mind reading sometimes demands higher order intentionality. Just think how difficult it is to process, I think, that you feel, that she wants, that he suspects. It is cognitively extremely demanding, and there's quite a lot of evidence that it would be impossible to create, for instance, big science, good things and bad things without this capacity to form alliances. But Machiavellian intelligence is selective, it's partial, and it's biased. Okay, I said I was going to talk about possible biological solutions to deficiencies in empathy, but I just think it's perhaps just worth briefly comparing approaches to biohappiness and biofriendliness. Last year I outlined here grounds for thinking that successors would enjoy genetically pre-programmed gradients of super-happiness, and one can attempt super-happiness via various routes: warheading, euphoric drugs, and genetic recalibration. Now, likewise, in terms of engineering friendliness towards each other, it's possible crudely to imagine neurostimulation. One thinks of Jose Delgado and his experiments where a raging bull is about to attack him. He presses the stim receiver and it's brought to a halt. What is the easiest way, in many ways, to disarm a potentially hostile Machiavellian ape, an alpha male organic robot? Yes, there are the more complicated ways, but there's actually one relatively simple way, and that is, for instance, to give a tablet of MDMA, and even a potentially hostile Millwall supporter or someone like that, it said would perhaps come up and give you a hug and tell you how wonderful you are. And it's worth briefly why is MDMA so effective at inducing these states of profound friendliness and trust, even though the human brain is perhaps the most complicated object in the universe so far. Just a simple little pill, for instance, can induce these profound changes, and dopamine, serotonin, and in particular oxytocin seem to be heavily implicated. That is the Buddha's motto. However, I'm not going to argue that the solution to problems of existential risk, global catastrophic risk, and all the other ills I mentioned earlier lie in pathogenic drugs. A number of obvious pitfalls to existing pathogens like MDMA: short-acting, in particular they just activate negative feedback mechanisms in the brain, leaving the user quite frequently a little bit less empathetic, less friendly afterwards. Clearly problems of abuse potential, even though the sensorium on MDMA is relatively clear, nonetheless a whole society of loved up people, it's not really conducive to economic growth. What about oxytocin? Now, oxytocin certainly isn't a panacea, but it's not a euphoriant, and would it be possible to boost oxytocin, central oxytocin function on a long-term basis? Could it make us naturally friendlier to each other? Yes, but, excuse me. However, many potential pitfalls with drugs, which I won't go into in depth here. It's worth asking, many transhumanists worry about the possibility of non-friendly superintelligence. Could one contemplate anything similar to MDMA or kind of mass oxytocin release for a potentially non-friendly super AGI? Maybe. This is a very, very difficult subject, but I think probably a better answer is that isn't it more desirable that the predisposition to super friendliness should be genetically hardwired? Also, we touched earlier on the question of what exactly is friendliness. What might a hug from a benevolent super AGI with a classical utilitarian ethic entail? If it had it might not be what one would imagine. It might convert us into something like utilitarian, which is optimized for pleasure. So long term, just as I think the only long-term route to recalibrating the hedonic treadmill and ensuring we all enjoy sustainable well-being, likewise, I think the same is true to ensuring that we are friendly to each other in the richest possible sense. Once again, there's this term designer babies, which frivolous sounds like designer clothing, but nonetheless later this century prospective parents will be able to choose the hedonic set point and the, to some degree, the empathetic intelligence of their future children. Here are just 3 examples of the kind of options in principle will be available. And clearly it is very difficult to predict what options parents will choose, but I think one just needs to ask oneself if you could choose a particular variant gene or allele of oxytocin function, the high empathy version, which would you choose? If you had the option to amplify the function of mirror neurons in your offspring, would you want to have extremely affectionate, lovable children? One could even, in principle, genetically hardwire mirror touch synesthesia. Mirror touch synesthesia, if I were to damage myself now, cut myself, you would literally feel physical pain as though it were your own. Now, probably you wouldn't want to do that given the nature of Darwinian life, but in future, if we were to essentially be sharing each other's joys, then this kind of empathetic intelligence would be possible. I should stress that this kind of scenario is extremely speculative. This is most certainly not a prediction, but nonetheless we will be able to shortly choose the level of friendliness we want to exhibit towards each other. I don't know who here is relatively naive and drug experienced, but mentioned earlier MDMA. If you took MDMA, you would probably feel towards each other as if if your neighbour were literally a genetic clone, and you would give him or her a spontaneous hug and tell him or her how wonderful he was, whereas probably you wouldn't feel comfortable doing that now. Now, we may not want to go down that route, but it will be technically feasible. And if we are serious about everything from mitigating existential risk to curing the pathologies of mood and anxiety, then this is a route we need to contemplate, I think. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.